Jesus, the Holy One, sent from heaven above.
Well, hey, friend, welcome back to the Love Your Bible podcast. Hey, I'm here with Jackson Greer, one of my dear friends. He's been on the podcast quite a bit. So how's it going, Jackson?
Good. Thanks, Cory, for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Jackson, it is, I know it's May right now when we're recording this, but when it drops, it's going to be June 4th when this thing drops. So, as you know, that's the month of June. And I've had a reminder on my calendar. I didn't put it on there. It just showed up, and it says first day of LGBTQ plus Pride Month. And you probably have a similar on your calendar where we have automatic populations of, we've been told, hey, guess what? June is the month of Pride. Now, I know June is the month of Pride because I've been living for the last few years, and I don't know when it just happened. But man, I feel like, I'm trying to think, like 3 years ago probably is when it was like, whoa, like this is everywhere. And I remember we went on a trip out west. We're traveling to like 9 national parks, and every national park we went to had a pride display. And on all of their websites, it was Pride Month. And I'm thinking like, what does the Badlands have to do with LGBTQ plus IA revolution? And it was just like, so I've got kids, it's all kids and families basically going to these parks, and man, the thing was Pride Month everywhere. And just last year, I went on a Disney cruise. We went on in the month of June, and you could imagine, actually the cruise, like there wasn't really that much, but when we went to Disney Springs, every store, huge billboards everywhere, Mickey and Rainbow. And it was just like, hey, this is good and normal, and this is what everyone should celebrate.
Oh, yeah. I was like, it's funny you bring up Disney. I feel like they were the only ones I remember doing that. Like you would joke, you know, in like the 2000s or 2010s of like, oh, you're going to Disney.
Yeah.
Is it during June? Like now our own White House, you know, ran the colors or something, you know.
Yeah.
It was last year or a couple years before, something like that. So
Yeah.
now the embracing of that in our culture has, just escalated quickly. Yeah. So.
Absolutely. So we are in June, and man, I've been doing the podcast for, I don't know, several years, and I haven't done anything particular to anything LGBTQ plus. So if you're like a first time listener and you're like, oh, this is one of those Christian guys who's attacking this revolution, well, go back. I've done a whole lot of, I think like over 100, and just want to make that up front. I'm a pastor of a church. Man, I have friends who are same-sex attracted. I have parents who have kids that are in gay relationships. I mean, you know, you name it. And this podcast is not supposed to try to, you know, say how evil those sins are, anything like that. It's just to, this first one, give us a perspective of how did we get here? Because, man, the sexual revolution that we are encountering with all of those letters, man, it's here and it's full steam. And sometimes as Christians, it's like, man, how did we get here? Like, what happened? And so what I'm going to hope to do through the month of June is do 3 podcast episodes because, man, this is the culture we live in. Like, it is ever. If you're a Christian, you can't escape the sexual revolution right now. And so the first episode, which is this one, is how did we get here? And so what me and Jackson are going to do is there's a book called Strange New World by Carl Trueman. I think it's one of the most important books you could read currently to figure out the climate we're in. So we're going to say, hey, please go read this. It's subtitle, How Thinkers and Activists Redefined Identity and Sparked the Sexual Revolution. So it really does kind of tell us how did we get here. And so I'm going to let Jackson help take us through thought leaders, thinkers, philosophers throughout really the last, 100 years?
Yeah, go all the way back to Rousseau in the 18th century. So,
So going back,
we go back quite a way. So
so we're gonna take those and just see for one, like it didn't just sneak up and like 9 years ago, all of a sudden, oh, we're in the middle of a revolution. It's been happening for a long time. It's like the frog in boiling water. You put a frog, you turn up the heat a little bit, and it slowly over time gets a little bit hotter, and then before long, all of a sudden, he's in boiling water. And the frog would have jumped out immediately if you just threw him in boiling water, but because it was a process, it was over time. He didn't even notice it was heating up. And I think as Christians, sometimes we're that little frog that now we feel the heat of culture all around us, and we're like, man, how did we get here? What happened? And we're going to see there's actually been a long game at play, and we're going to just answer the question, how did we get here? How did we get to our phones told us? And I'm sure, I know I'm not in the month of June yet, but I'm sure Disney Plus, and I'm sure every thing that you buy, the dishwashing detergent, I promise you, Dawn dishwashing detergent will have a Pride ad. Everybody will. And it's just, how do we get here? Like what happened in the culture to make us come to this place? And so what we want to do is walk through really this book and some notes called The Strange New World. And there's a book that's kind of mimicking, right? What's the book that...
Carl Trueman is kind of ripping off the title of by Aldous Huxley, so a British author. The book was released in the 1930s called Brave New World.
Could you tell us a little bit about Brave New World if we haven't read it?
Yes, if you haven't read it. First, I do highly recommend it. However, it is graphic in its content. And I think it's perfect, though, for a picture of, even in the 1930s, how Huxley saw the future going, and it is a world consumed by pleasure. It is a hedonistic, there is no limitations at all. It's all the sex you can have, it's all the drugs you can have. It is a life consumed with you. It is focused on you, and it's so interesting to watch. Then the novel progresses to there's somebody who doesn't fit in as much, who maybe wants a relationship built more on connection than just, sexual satisfaction and just moving on. And then they encounter somebody who's not grown up in that at all. And watching what they call, the quote-unquote savage, trying to enter that world and what it leads him to, which is ultimately despair, is quite interesting to see, is the poison that this culture has good. It's a great juxtaposition against 1984.
Yeah.
Right?
Which one of my favorite books.
Oh, yeah. That's another great one, by George Orwell.
Also scary.
Just get
ready.
Yeah, is the totalitarian state, of, like a... North Korea, right, of Big Brother. They're all watching. And so it's interesting to watch. One was written in the 1930s. One was written in the late 1940s, and how both of them have played out in just different cultures.
Yeah.
Of, some might be like, oh, there's Big Brother here. There's that. Oh, yeah, there is. But in the West, particularly, it's Brave New World. Mm-hmm. You have unlimited satisfaction, right? You, at your fingertips, if you're not being satisfied throughout the day, what are you doing with your life, right? Is come grab every single thing that you can get. So
yeah, and you're mentioning how it's a little bit hard to read, and I think when I've read through, Brave New World, it's like the sexualization of children is what's really like just, man, it's disturbing, like how it's just promoted. It's like, this is a good thing. Let the kids all play on the playground and and it's just like, whoa, you should not do that. Yeah. But then here we have in our culture right now, it's like, hey, we should be telling our kindergartners that they should be exploring their sexual identity and who they really are as a man or a woman.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, wow, we're there.
Yeah, you're there. You have, obviously not in our area yet, but major cities that have drag queen story hour at the public library, and you're like, where did that possibly ever become an idea where someone thought, that's okay, that's good?
Yeah.
And me and Hannah talk about, raising, we have 3 young children right now, where you're like, the poison and the dangers there of, and the ridiculousness that we would have laughed at, like imagining, and we'll get to this because Trueman uses this too, of like explaining that to my grandparents, of like that this would be an event at the public library would be utterly alien to them. Of wait, what? Who is reading to your child?
Yeah.
What is their identity? What is going? That can't even begin to process this now. Where
your grandma's pulling him out of the library,
right? Yes. Where now most of y'all have already heard, that exact phrase of a drag queen story hour. People, oh yeah, I've heard of that.
Normal,
right? Versus where we've come from and been. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I want to read a little bit of the foreword. This is by Ryan T. Anderson, the president of Ethics and Public Policy Center. So he's written a few books, When Harry Met Sally, and actually got banned from Amazon.
When Harry became Sally.
When Harry Became
Yeah, yeah.
Sally. Yeah.
Yeah,
I guess the other one is the movie, right?
Oh yeah.
So yeah, which was kind of off of that movie.
Right.
But yeah, which got banned from Amazon.
Yeah, you have to go to a different bookseller. It's not on Amazon. I can get Mein Kampf. I can get Hitler's Ramblings Against the
Isn't that
Jews
wild?
and the Struggle
Yeah.
on Amazon, but
Yeah,
I
but a
can't-
book that sort of is against transgenderism gets pulled.
Right.
Which this podcast may get pulled. Who knows?
Apple will search it out.
But I do want to just look at what he says about. So he's kind of, showing what this book is about. And he says that at the risk of oversimplifying what Trueman accomplishes, I would summarize the broad arc of his work as the account of how the person became a self, the self became sexualized, and sex became politicized. And so I think when you're thinking about, okay, what's this book about? That's sort of it. And so this idea of the person became a self, we're really going to talk a lot about the modern self. Because I think to understand the current sexual revolution, you have to understand the modern self and how the modern self is different than historical self, you could say, and especially the biblical personhood, right? I mean, very different than we're made in the image of God. We're made to glorify Him, and we live under His good word. Very much different. This book that we see. So as we sort of play through, he's got a few lines in here that I just want to read. He says, the modern self then is not accountable to the theologians who preach on how to conform oneself to God, but to the therapists who counsel how to be true to oneself, thus giving the rise to the triumph of the therapeutic. And so he goes on and just talks about, different ways this happens. I'm quoting again. He says this, what was once simply self-evident, that a boy should grow up to be a man, to become a husband, and assume the responsibilities of a father, now entails a search to discover an inward truth about gender identity and sexual orientation based on emotions and will rather than nature and reason. And again, just what was assumed, that, hey, if you're a boy, you're going to do these certain things, and this is sort of the projection of your life. Now it's completely up for grabs. Hey, you should actually look inward to how you feel about yourself. Your inward person is who you really are. And part of self-discovery and self-actualization is showing the world who you really are on the inside. And that might mean changing your very body that you're in. And so he goes through just, how this is kind of happening. And then he kind of ends his little thing to just talk about like where we are. And he quotes President Biden, who says, transgender equality is the civil rights issue of our time. So that is our current sitting president saying, hey, the civil rights issue of our time is transgenderism. So the reason we're talking about these things is not just because it's like, hey, we want to pick on a certain group of people by any stretch of imagination. This is the issues. This is currently what's happening in the culture around us. And what we want to do is help people see, how do we navigate this? Like, how do we understand how we even got here? Because if we don't understand our times, we can't understand how to embrace them and get through them and really bring the gospel to bear on them.
Right. Absolutely. We have to, and I kind of echo what you said earlier of like, this is not my topic of like, enjoyment or forte of the transgender movement. Or I'm begging of like, Cory, you could bring me on to talk about Athanasius in the early church or the Enlightenment in general, which is what I do enjoy. And like a lot of these thinkers, it's where that movement eventually occurs. And I agree that we're looking at something where I think, people before have brought up to me or something where I'm like, what do you think of like, we're living in unprecedented times? And you're like, yes, absolutely. Of even the president of the United States that you just read, the quote from President Biden says, our lifetime, which shows also his own understanding of history. He realizes he's trying to do something, very much kind of untold, but it's also funny that his historical, analogy went back to the civil rights movement, which he was alive for. So it's kind of funny. His own quote is, the civil rights movement that has already now done and passed in his mind is now saying that one's passed. So now, therefore, in my lifetime, let's get another one in before. And so he's not even, which one is it? Is it the civil rights during his lifetime of, you know, the 1960s and making sure, you know, of Martin Luther King Jr. and the passing of the Civil Rights Act in 1965. Or he's playing his hand because he's a politician, and whoever feeds and don't look the gift horse in the mouth. So he's now changed his tune, as many have. Even, you know, I think of Barack Obama's first, you know, campaign, right? And his support of the Defense of Marriage Act, right? And so now, obviously, he changed his tune.
And I can remember being in Fidalgo Bay Coffee Shop. It's now Future Grounds.
Yes.
And reading the magazine article of, you know, Obama having his change of heart when it comes to gay marriage. And it was, you know, what is marriage? And it was a conversation around his table with his two girls. I think the two daughters knew a friend that had two moms, etc. And it was just, man, around this kitchen table, it was sort of his reevaluating what marriage is. And it's like, this is, man, why not? Like why shouldn't two women or two men? And it's like, man, you know, a kitchen conversation with his two girls. And it's like, there wasn't okay, well, first of all, what is marriage? Not like who should have it or how should we treat it, but what is the thing? And I think just that first question, if they would have had that, it would have been a little different outcome. It's like, oh, what is marriage? Well, we actually know what it is. There's actually a definition to it, and we can't just change it. But we're getting there, so we're gonna go towards that.
Right. Yes.
But let's first keep dealing with, like, how did we get to the point where all this is? And I think chapter 1, what Carl Trueman does is he really takes us to this idea of the modern self.
Yes.
And so I would love for us to just, man, I'll read here. So he first talks about this idea of expressive individualism, which if you haven't heard that, it's sort of the air that we breathe. And here's what, just a definition of it. It says this: expressive individualism holds that each person has a unique core of feelings and intuitions that should unfold or be expressed if individuality is to be realized. So, man, take that definition and kind of give us some nuance of what is this modern self that we believe in today.
Right. Yes. It's to put it, oh man, absolutely, just kind of bluntly, is based around the fact of your feelings, your desires, your reaching and goal of happiness must first be fulfilled through authenticity. Of to be authentic, to be the real you, will thus bring happiness. And at whatever cost that may be to others. And that's why this movement is so tied into acceptance. I need others to validate what I have said thus about myself. And therefore, my happiness will be met when someone says, oh, they've reached their authentic self. If I'm going to find myself, I'm going to wrestle, you know, with who I am and what I am, my purpose, right? Which are ancient questions, right? And people throughout all of history have asked, what am I here for, my purpose? But it's detached itself against any absolute truth or absolute standings of, if my reality needs to be different from the world that I am offered, I will change what I need to change.
And I think too, like backing up, there's never those inward desires and feelings were never encouraged to ask the question, are these good or bad?
Right.
It's just assumed, well, if they're in you, then they are good.
Right.
And you don't have to try to bring morality to the equation, because if you bring morality, that's an external force upon yourself, and you're already going to, hurt your authentic self, because if it's authentically you, it has to be good.
Right. Yes. This goes then to, of course, that there's and where we'll get to how we got here is the denial of a fallen nature and just that it's nature, right? Of there's nothing fallen about human nature. It's you need to express your nature however it may play out in defense, because we've rejected any, truth claims that would come from a moralistic, teaching, or, the Christian, ethics that have shaped the West, right? And so I know we're focused more on the Western, the world and understanding. So yeah, it's absolutely to say you're good, right? Your heart is good, your soul's good, your desires are good. You should act those out and live those out.
Yeah, and he's even going to argue that. So part of the reason of the book is that idea of expressive individualism provides the backdrop to what we now call the sexual revolution. So you can't understand where we are in the sexual revolution without understanding this idea of the modern self.
Right.
That who you really are is your authentic feeling inside of you, and it has to be brought out, has to be celebrated, has to be accepted. And then we're going to see as we get a little bit further down the road, well, if that's true, then it all has to be political because we have to protect those identities, those feelings. They have to be good. We have to have consequences if somebody doesn't celebrate those. And so we're going to see how this notion got politicized as the self got sexualized. And here we are in that idea of the self. So any other things you want to say about this idea of the modern self before we get to how did these thinkers lead us there?
Right. Yeah. I think the last kind of comment on that, which he talks about more in the last chapter of the book, is the modern self is detached from. It's not that there's the self as a new idea in general. Like individualness is an okay thing. Individuality is good. God created us individually, right? The church is a great example of that. Paul in the New Testament writes of like the idea of the church as a body. Mm-hmm. There are some that are the hands. There are some that are the feet. You're an individual. That's okay. That's good. You are, though, still attached to a boundary within that individual self. I see it, I think, most vibrant on like a Sunday morning when we're all singing together. Individually, I'm singing, but also collectively we're singing.
Yeah.
Or during the Lord's Supper, right? Communion. I love the term like communion. We're communing with God. When you or your dad are up there and we're looking at this of drink all of you, right? This is the blood of my covenant. Right, is I'm drinking that as an individual, knowing Christ has died for me, right? I am covered in his blood and his righteousness. I will be redeemed and restored. I'm made new in his image. However, I look around that room, we're also taking that as a body of Christ, that all of us together. That concept has been done away with. The modern self is you, yourself. What you say goes. The ancient understanding of the self is still under. There are rules, there are principles at play.
Yeah.
There's an understanding of yourself within the world and the greater world around, that there's something greater than you.
And even how we used to like find ourselves. I remember Trevor Wax talking about this, but he said that, you think about the ancient world, it was usually you looked first like around, like, okay, what is my family structure? What is my culture? Oh, well, I'm a son, or I'm a daughter, or I'm a brother, I'm a sister, and I'm a worker. I do this. Like you look externally around you, and then you would, then like look up to the gods. Well, how does the gods in some way define me? And then if you had time, you might look into yourself and be like, how do I feel? And then the Christian perspective would really take that of like, don't look outside first. First look to God.
Yes.
What does God say about me? Well, I'm an image bearer of God. I'm defined by the rules that he set before me. Then you also do look around to like your family and your community. How did they define me? What country do I live in? What are my cultural cues? And I do find identity based on those things as well. And then also I have this now, my role is to bring my inner feelings in line with who God says that I am, where the modern view is, no, the first thing to do is look within and determine who you are. And then look outwardly and try to get everyone else to agree and celebrate what you just said about yourself. And then if you want to look up to God sort of as like some help for, living out your best life, then you can definitely do that. And we're very spiritual people. Yeah. We love that idea of like, we want some spiritual force to also be helpful in this journey. But it's a complete reversal of how pretty much all humans have done it throughout human history.
Yeah.
And so we're at a very unique time. So I would love for you to give us, how did we get here from the thought leaders? So I know in chapter 2, he talks about the romantic roots.
Yes.
And I don't think this is talking about like rom-coms on TV.
Right, yeah.
So what are these romantic roots that Trueman is going to give to us?
Yeah, absolutely. So he's talking about, and I think some great poets. Now he's talking about the romantic movement, the poets like Percy Shelley, William Blake, I think even William Wordsworth, this movement which I find absolutely fascinating because they are. It's the power and language of love. It's the power and language of sentiment. Who am I? They're going to be influenced by Rousseau, which he talks about in a little bit as well, is that key kind of philosopher for them. But they're going to start with stories. That poetry fills us with this need for freedom. They're going to look against oppression. Who are you to say, who am I to love, right? Percy Shelley's very famous for this. He's the husband of Mary Shelley, who wrote Frankenstein, which is...
You like that book, right?
It's one of my top, in the top 3. I'm not kidding. It's
Wow.
so good.
Does that include the Bible?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, novels, just novels.
Okay,
Yeah.
I gotcha.
Scripture, stands alone above all things. But it's such a good, deep book. But and she also, after he dies, it's very interesting to see her understanding of relationships after that.
Okay.
But he runs with that is, he has these poems about the oppression of people on his love, right? He wants there to be more than just Mary Shelley, his wife, and that's something they struggle with in their marriages. What do you mean there's more than one, woman to be your person? And he goes, why would you bind me in by these boundaries? Where would you get off with thinking that monogamy was something that was good? It's actually a cruel thing that's been posed on us by society because it makes society safe.
Man.
And it's just kind of, to us, obviously the church listens to laughable, but this is where we're at, right?
Yeah.
This is our
Absolutely.
culture we live in is love, free love of, the summer of love, right? And the 67 is why, it's too much to say, hey, devotion to one woman for the rest of my life, Jackson. How does that sound to you?
And if I desire another one, then you're sort of harming me.
Yeah.
Because that's unloving to me if you're not letting me, just live out my true identity and what I really want. Now I'm not going to be happy. I'm not going to be free. Do you really want that? And so it's that whole idea of hey, whatever I want is good.
Oh, yeah.
And you should celebrate that, no matter if it hurts you.
Yes. And Shelley and Blake and all them are going to then say, and who's the worst person opposed to us right now is the church. Organized church, organized religion is, who are you?
Who put rules around things like sexuality.
Yes, and marriage and these social norms that the ancients didn't have, and they were so much happier for. How dare you? That's such a cruel fate. And, the family unit is something that isn't natural.
Yeah. Yeah. Kids, raised in homes with moms and dads who love each other and stay together and don't cheat on one another. It's a really bad,
it's a terrible
bad situation.
How dare you bind me?
Yeah.
Which
so anything else about the Romantics? So I know we have this, so really to summarize, what did the Romantics do culturally? It was, in my understanding, to really give authority to inner feelings. Would that be the main? Is there anything that's just a main takeaway of, okay, when we're tracking down the current sexual revolution, what did the Romantics bring? So we have the, that authority of your inner feelings.
Yes.
Those are really important, and more important than the outside world or rules or church or God, or how do you feel? Go with that. Would that be the main thing in your mind that would be this romantic understanding of what they brought to the revolution?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the beginning of, there's freedom there. Why would you withhold that from yourself? If you want true satisfaction in life, which is yours for the taking, I know they are in response to the Enlightenment, right? So the Romantics are the pushback from, hey, reason is the answer, right? We're searching for truth. We're searching for reason. We can know the solids, we can know the true facts. The Romantics are that pushback, that movement of writers and thinkers and poets and artists who say, no, sentiment, feelings, desires, these are unexplainable by reason. And they take hold because there is some truth to that, right? If I come home and I tell Hannah, here are 3 main facts that I have deduced on why I should have picked you as my wife. Here's a card that says you are the most reasonable thing I can think of is, I'm not winning any points.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm not sitting there going,
take your reason and walk back out the door.
Yeah. It's not like, oh, goodness. Yeah, he is a great person at flirting of. It's that undescribable is love can't be just rationalized and put in a box. And they win a lot that way. There is some rhyme and reason to that of Jane Austen, right? And Mr. Darcy at the very end of Pride and Prejudice saying is, I didn't know the hour or the day. I shouldn't have been with you. You're below my station. Your family's kind of crazy. But I can't stop thinking about you and wanting to be with you. Is that can't be defined by reason. And they gain a lot of followers through that. That's like our movies and our sentiments today a little bit, right? Is they're the people read poetry more often back then. They're the ones that got swept away in the culture. Yeah,
absolutely. And even I'm thinking like Song of Solomon. You know, there's a lot of, the idea of like when the couple gets married, the daughters of Jerusalem are singing over them and they say, hey, be drunk with love.
Yeah.
It's like, and then if you look at Proverbs, the dad tells his sons like, hey, you need to be into your wife. Like, why be intoxicated with another woman? Like, it's like, hey, there's this sense of, man, love is uncontrollable, and you should in marriage, like, enjoy it, and it's not exactly reasonable, it's not tame, it's hey, be drunk, like lose control, but it's in the covenant of marriage. That's where it's good,
right? Yes.
And so taking some of these things of hey, here's a feeling that's strong and is desire all over it, but if you remove it from the covenant, and it's just going to go crazy.
Yeah, and those romantic poets disregard the ancient poet of Solomon at the end of Ecclesiastes who said, I made a mistake.
Yep.
I went from one bride to many,
Yep.
and I've made a ruin of that. They disregard that of, no, he didn't understand. He had it all at his fingertips.
Yep.
That was the moment of life, and he's saying, no.
Vanity, all of it.
Vanity, yes.
Yeah, so that's awesome. All right, let's take us to chapter 3, where this is Prometheus Unbound. I don't even know if that's how you say his name.
Yeah,
Prometheus, is that right? Okay, so A, who is that? And B, what does Carl Trueman try to say in chapter 3 to us about Prometheus Unbound?
Right, remember, so Prometheus is the god that gave mankind fire.
Okay.
Right, so then his punishment is every day like an eagle comes and rips his liver out or something. So Carl Trueman's painting that picture of he gave them fire and thus unable, to be brought back, right? Of, hey, you gave them power, you gave them that knowledge that now they can do, so many great and wonderful things, which is also, again, Mary Shelley wrestles with that in Frankenstein, is Prometheus, of what that looks like with the changing tide of mankind has the power within itself.
Okay.
It's the movement of authority. It's the transition. His chapter is a lot of focus now on where did the culture transition to who is actually truly in charge.
Okay. So the Romantics, it's this idea of our feelings have authority. And so now this chapter, what's like the main thread that is going to pull us into the sexual revolution?
Okay. Alrighty. So he has like three thinkers through this. You've got Karl Marx. You can take us through
those if you want. That'd be great.
Right, yeah. You've got Karl Marx, obviously, Communist Manifesto. His context is the Industrial Revolution. Capitalism is, the evils. He is very much against, organized religion.
Yeah.
You've also got Charles Darwin, who brings in natural selection, right? That natural selection is how evolution, has kicked off. He didn't come up with the theory of evolution, but he's moving it through, hey, natural selection, which is funny because he even watches another thinker, Thomas Malthus, right, that says, hey, the controlling of the populations of people, right, and that there's only so many resources. The strong get them, the weak don't need them. The key one, I think, though, in the chapter that Trueman hits on is Friedrich Nietzsche.
Okay.
He's the man who keeps this culture going way forward. The others are very crucial. Just my own personal opinion, this is the one who takes the cake.
Okay, so tell us what Nietzsche, what did he do that is still lingering today? Like,
right,
what was his contribution, and then how does it lead to like the modern self and all that we see?
He definitely is kind of part of this architect of nihilism, but his great famous quote that you've probably heard from him, that everybody's heard and it's ripped a little bit out of its context, is, God is dead. And he remains dead, and we have killed him. That's his it's in his book, The Gay Science, or The Joyful Science, right?
Okay.
Of he does not believe in God. Please hear that. Nietzsche doesn't think is, there was a God and he's dead.
Yeah.
there never was a God in his mind, but he's using the idea of God.
Okay.
That humanity and evolution at some point needed the understanding of the world around him, invented gods, eventually Christianity said, hey, there's the one God, and thus now we're moving along that evolutionary process and chain. And he's going to argue his idea of the Superman, which Adolf Hitler and others will say is the Aryan race eventually, and they'll grab a hold of that. And he's going to say that's the next person in the evolutionary chain who's going to be able to come and grasp this idea of God is dead, we've killed him. Therefore, undo all ideas by the church. Don't follow humanism is now coming online of don't follow the humanists saying, hey, there's still good teachings, right? Jesus wasn't God, but he's a good teacher. We're going to take some of that morality.
And undoing the church, in particular, like the moral fabric of, hey, here's what you should do as a human being. Like there's rules. You're made under God. You're made to thrive in God's commandments.
Yes.
So morality, in a sense, if God is dead, there is no morality.
There is no morality, right? And there shouldn't be. He's going to say, don't hold on to those. Don't be like, because it's in this passage of the madman, right? And he realizes the madman later is, my time hasn't come. People are still holding on to this specter, this ghost of Christian morality. He goes, that doesn't exist. Why? Because there's no Christian God. And you shouldn't hold on to it. He goes, because it's not there. You are the captain of your own fate. You are the captain that is in control of your own feelings, and you, humanity, the Superman, is going to have to come up with our ethics.
Okay.
You are going to be the one that is now the decider, the factor. This is also still, in a way, an absolute ancient question, even in Genesis 3, when the serpent comes into the garden, and we have Eve that has to face the question from Satan that says, did God really say? We are natural questioners.
Yeah.
Right? We naturally have that curiosity and that wonderment, that temptation to say, did God really say this? Did he actually mean this? Well, if you've got a culture that is, hey, he was never there, why are you holding on to those teachings? They serve no purpose. They're an ancient system, and they're actually holding you back. So therefore, completely remove yourself from the oppression of the church, because it's a falsehood, right? It's made up, and you're wrestling with things that don't exist. He is, I think, truly at the heart of it, the most important one in that chapter. Now, others might disagree with me. I know Karl Marx, obviously, as a historian still.
Big guy.
But we've been dealing with communism and socialism, even still into the Cold War, all these different things. However, and I know Darwin has, undone many ideas of what humans are, where we come from. But Nietzsche really does get into our desires to be God.
Yeah. And then even in the desire or the argument of, okay, if there's no God, there's no true morality. So then what Nietzsche would say is, if I'm right, would be morality is really just taste.
Yeah.
Like it's personal preference, personal taste. Like you're an artist, paint your own painting. Like we all have different tastes. And so then our morality now is not objective, is this right or wrong, but it's what do we like?
Right, yeah. I don't want to skip ahead to the next chapter, but that's exactly where Sigmund Freud in the next chapter goes is ethics is written by disgust, of what disgusts you, and therefore you need to get over that.
Yeah.
And of course, he's got some absolute disgusting views on sex and all these, different ideas. And so, but Nietzsche's going to, you're absolutely right, is you are the one that's now in charge. You are the one that can have your preferences, which is, you can see now where we're laying that framework. You are the one that picks. You are the authority. Therefore, who is to question you, right? Why would they question you? Which nihilism and relativism, all of our fun little isms that come in the 20th century do kind of have that root, that hold of he's done away with absolute truth, because if we have no, absolute truth, then now we can get to that point where he's truly at, and he enjoys and wants us to be.
Yeah. Here's a little bit of Trueman in this on the right before the Superman part. This is page 64. He says, Nietzsche's notion that morality is really about taste is very helpful in thinking about our current moral climate. So often the language we use conforms to Nietzsche's perspective and is now cultural institution. So often we speak of morality in terms of taste or aesthetics. That remark was hurtful That idea is offensive. That viewpoint makes me feel unsafe. Notice that such expressions do not make a statement about whether the matters in hand are right or wrong. In fact, the underlying assumption is that the offenses or hurtfulness of them is identically with moral contentment. The subject response has become the ethical criteria for judgment. So it's like it's not saying like, hey, that's right or that's wrong. It hurts me.
Yeah.
That's offensive to me.
That's offensive. Of you're attacking my identity and my
Not
being.
that this is right or wrong, but it's taste.
Yes.
And we see that, man, all over our culture right now.
Oh,
that
yeah.
It's the idea of like we're fighting over taste and aesthetics, not right and wrong.
Right, absolutely, and that should catch our eyes as the church, because Scripture teaches, and I think I've heard you mention this several times. Is I know we're focused right now on the sexual revolution. It speaks to every person, right? And I think of like 1 Corinthians 6, like homosexuality is in the list of sins that Paul lists.
Lots of things.
With lots of other things of pride, greed,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Of liars, and then he finishes with that beautiful, and such were some of you. Is every single one
now
of us.
You've been washed.
You've been washed. You've been redeemed. Every single one of us, you're going to find parts in Scripture that are going to say, ow. Mm-hmm. You should, right? If you step away from Scripture going, man, I've got this in the bag. I've got this together. You didn't read it, because each and every one of us are fallen short of the glory of God.
Yeah.
And therefore, as the church, us beginning that conversation with, all of us are wrong. All of us. There's not just one that says, hey, I'm above the others. No, no, no. Luther's, one of his last words in the end of his life is, we are beggars, this is true.
Yeah.
Right? Is we're all beggars. I'm not above anybody else, even if our some of our struggles and temptations may look different.
Yeah.
Is each and every one of us had to be washed, because we were, transgressors against a holy God.
Yeah.
And so,
and I love you in that idea of like, I've heard it said many times by different people, but like, thought of like orientation. So sexual orientation, like one is good and one is bad.
Right.
So it's like, if you're same-sex attracted, well, in church world, like you have a wrong orientation. If you're same-sex attracted, so it's like, okay, you either have a good or bad orientation. And it's like, I think it was Dr. Moore who says, hey, the reality is every person on the planet has a broken sexual orientation.
Right.
Like all of us. There is no man who's born who his sexual orientation is, I have zero lust towards anybody until I get married, and then I'm a one-woman man to that woman for the rest of my life.
Right,
No,
yeah.
it's, guess what? All guys are born into this world with a orientation towards lust, towards pornography, towards looking around. So a Christian man has to say, hey, my orientation is broken, and I need to bring it into conformity to Christ. Like, I'm going to fight to be a one-woman man. I'm going to guard my eyes against lust. Right. So it's not like, okay, Christian men who are straight, that's great. No, we all have a struggle in the area of sexuality.
Oh, yeah.
And same thing for, our sisters in Christ. They are born with a broken sexual orientation. And so in different ways, they are tempted towards sexual morality. So it's not just like, if you're straight, then, you have nothing to worry about.
Right, yeah. Samson was physically the strongest. Solomon was the wisest, and David was the holiest, and all of them fall into sexual sin.
Yeah.
And so if I'm stronger than any of them in any of those areas, which I'm not, then what should you probably be focused on and also fighting for is my own purity, my own, my eyes, my temptations is,
no doubt.
This does not, exclude me. This sexual revolution is, the romantics are trying to get at my fallen nature.
Yes.
Jackson, think of all the pleasures that you're missing out on,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
To pursue and do, and this is what you deserve.
Yeah.
Versus Christ that preaches, this is a fallen nature, right? This is not the way it was intended. Look back at the garden before, the beauty that is there. That is what is actually pleasurable, because it's a mirror and an image of Christ and his church, right? Of faithfulness and a union that is centered on that instead of, what I can get from it.
Yeah. So I think it's important to note that I know this is about Pride Month, LGBTQ plus, but when you think about Pride Month and the sexual revolution, hey, guess what, listener? You're also affected by this. You are also tempted to give into and to join the sexual revolution. And it might look very different in your life than your friend's life, but it's the husband who's tempted in various ways. It's the wife who's tempted in various ways. It's all of us. We are all, in a sense, man, broken and fallen, and also restored and beautiful in Christ, and we have to pursue the right things. Yeah. And so, don't just think we're talking about them in some category far from us. We're talking about us. We're talking about all of us when you think about the sexual revolution, and how do we fight it as believers to pursue holiness.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So let's go on to anything else you want to say about chapter 3 before we move on to chapter 4, where now we're getting into psychology, and we're getting into really politics.
Yeah.
And so so we've talked about, okay, the person became a self. This is, I'm expressing myself. This is who I am. I create my own destiny. And then that self got sexualized, and we see that through romantics. We see it through even Nietzsche and like different morality. But in Freud, we're really going to see this idea of the self becoming sexualized. And then, man, from that, we're going to see it's going to all become political. So let's deal with, is Freud, this is the chapter of Freud, would that be
Freud,
right? So
yes.
tell us how Freud really made it to where we became a sexual being at our core identity.
Yes, that is his goal. That is his understanding of the world, is you are primarily a sexual being. Is that true? Are we a sexual being? Yes, absolutely. We've been created by God with a gender, right, with a sex, right? So there's male and there's female. Now, there are some that are, eunuchs for the kingdom, right? Christ talks about there's some that will be single. But for the most part, Paul also says that's not going to be the case, right?
Yeah.
Marry. There are good things. Solomon shows the goodness of that. However, the Freud that we see turns us into these rutting pigs that is highly, also just be honest, personal, is a complete insult to me as a person of like, this is who you are and this is who you should be. And happiness will be there of, I'm not more than this. I wasn't created for something greater. And also conversations of like that me and my wife, like we're best friends.
Yeah.
Like we have conversations, we have in depth, we laugh.
Yeah.
Like there's a beauty there. And all you're saying is you were designed for sex and you should go get sex. Don't think about anything.
Yeah.
Like, I love books. I like making a tea on a day and just like watching the rain, right? We're about to have like a storm in a second.
I'm looking out the window. It's like, this is great.
I'm going to reheat my coffee and like, I'm created for other pleasures than that. I'm created for other great things besides it's all sex.
Yeah.
And so he has these disturbing quotes of primitive man was better off in knowing no restrictions of instinct, right? Really, primitive man? That he was truly free. Yeah. I'm like, that's that golden, that every group thinks this of, that there's this golden era, right? Where nothing bad happened. That's that, true just pride in history of they had it good. That was the golden age to live in. And you're like, really?
Yeah.
Primitive man. I'm sorry. This is insulting, but I think of like, you've seen pictures of Sigmund Freud. I'm like, I don't think you would have won the contest between the competing males, right? For the control of the female herd population.
You wouldn't have gotten as much as you thought you're going to get.
Yeah, there's that romantic, again, bringing that up, that view of how I would have been at that time. You're like, I think we all have that tendency to view ourselves too highly. But his most shocking one comes from his work, Future of an Illusion, where he says, is it not true that the two main points in the program for the education of children today are retardation of sexual development and premature religious influence? You're not letting them sexually develop early enough, and you're giving them religion too early.
Wow.
Those are the two
Shut
key
down
problems.
First Fruits Farm.
This is 1927. Wow. This could sound easily like a sexual activist today of, I'm really worried those church people are indoctrinating them at a young age, and they're not letting them sexually develop in kindergarten.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's exactly what should be happening, right?
Yeah.
My children need to be hearing scripture and the truth foretold, and they don't need to be hearing any of that. Yeah. Like me and Hannah are those parents even towards like, we don't have boyfriends or girlfriends, we have friends.
Absolutely.
Right? Those girls in your class are friends, and they're image bearers, and they're awesome. Yeah. I don't want to hear anybody go like, oh, they're starting to have like a girl. No, stop it.
Yeah.
Stop sexualizing
Yeah.
my, even harmless things like
Absolutely.
that is a sexualization of my child.
Because now they're looking at the opposite sex and be like, should I?
Yeah,
Like,
is that what we're supposed to do?
Yeah.
Yeah. Versus that's not the way that it was created to be. Is what I want them to watch is mom and dad interact.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Yeah.
This is how we're going to teach. And so therefore, this is a big thing is who are you, parent, to say what belongs to your child? Who are you to hold that over? Everything.
The parent.
The parent, me. I'm the authority. I've been given the control, right, of the situation for the next, 18 years.
Yeah.
I'm the one who's there, created by God, right, as their authority over that life. So therefore, and my authority goes is that's why, you have these, clashes at school boards and stuff of what are you teaching there? Well, you don't need to know that.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. And if your kid's transitioning, we don't have to let you know.
Yeah.
We're going to give them puberty blockers without your consent. They can have an abortion pill without you. Like, it's a very much of, hey, let's get parents out of the equation because parents are, they're going to repress their kids.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then flip it to like, I teach obviously New Covenant. I teach history and humanities is that syllabus is going to be what the parents are going to know what we're teaching and talking about.
Absolutely.
Why? Because you deserve that information.
Yeah.
I want you to know what your kids are learning and talking about because I'm supposed to be coming alongside you. Mm-hmm. You're the authority.
Yeah.
I therefore play into that as a support system for that, not we know better than those rascal parents, right? Those renegade parents is like, this is what has left, and Freud is part of this, is the undoing of the traditional family unit that has been throughout all time in history as a foundation to society.
Yeah. And I think even like the identity portion of, so I'm reading on page 71, he says this, in biblical times or in ancient Greece, sex was regarded as something that human beings did. Today, it is considered to be something vital to who human beings are. That's a big difference.
Yeah.
Like, think about biblical times, ancient Greece, like history. Hey, sex is something that you did. It was an act. Now, sex is something that you are. It's an identity marker. And you get, of course, the LGBTQ. It's like, these are identity markers. This is part of not just what I do, this is who I am. And I think you see this shift in, now this is not just something that I do, but it's something that I am. And really, it's the most important thing that I am to a lot of people, even in our moment.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And your happiness will be tied to that. I think one of the biggest figures that a lot of people don't know, they recognize Freud's name, but it's Wilhelm Reich, who is also in the chapter, who's the one who actually politicizes Freud. He takes Marx, right, Karl Marx, and class, conflict and warfare and stuff, and puts it with Freud's sexual repression ideas and brings it to the political square. He brings it of saying that the family unit is the one that has to go. Right, he blames traditional family for producing submissive types. They won't resist authoritative states later. Right, this is the group saying like that traditional family is how the Nazis got going. Right, like what idiotic understand? Sorry, as like a historian, I know I can put that better, but like, wait, the family unit is this the scapegoat? This is Edward Gibbon, right, writing the fall of the Roman Empire and blames it on the Christians.
Yeah,
our greatest thinkers and people were Christians. Right, wait. This is where you're getting from is you've found the scapegoat. Mm-hmm. Reich is upset, and so he's upset that parents are taking action in their kids' lives and says, oh no, the family has prohibited a child's sexual development. You should therefore punish the family politically. Punish them. Versus Moses charges the parents in Deuteronomy 6 is talk about it all the time. Yeah. God's statutes, right? As wherever you go, it's right after the Shema of Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one, is wherever you go, teach your kids. Yeah. Right? You are the one, right? You are the one who's supposed to be teaching and guiding and being involved. Is right going, if you do that, we'll punish you. How dare you override that? Which sounds more as Reich's upset that I'm overriding his idea of happiness. Yeah. Right? That's your idea, man. Yeah. You've now pushed it on our family. Yeah. You've pushed it saying, hey, you're not enjoying the freedoms that I want you to have. Who are you? Yeah. You're not an authority here. Yeah. But politics now has gotten to that point where how dare you stand in the way of if somebody wants to transition at 6? Really? Puberty blockers or this or you want to run with that? And that parents are the one to blame.
Yeah.
And now we have people who've transitioned who are now blaming the system and suing the system back, saying,
Yeah.
no one stopped me.
No one told me. Yeah. No one stood in my way.
No one stood, because people were afraid to be labeled a bigot instead of saying, hey, you're a man, you think you might want to be a woman. What if we sat down and talked? How's things at the house? How are things in your life? What are therapy's a good thing, right?
Absolutely.
The church should be
absolutely
cheering on,
no doubt.
counseling.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's where we have this, truth on our side is, hey, all these falsehoods, all of these claims, it's not going to be able to hold it. The revolution is going to break all of its promises.
Yeah.
The church is going to be the ones to say, hey, you know what you should first start with is, how are things? How are you? Why? We're not trying to bully. I'm just asking why. Yeah. If I'm talking to somebody who has pronouns, right, of this, why do you feel you need that? Yeah. I see you, right? You're a person. I'm acknowledging you. Yes. Let's just talk, right? Do you need those? Yeah. What led to that embracement of that idea of you had to go? And so this is where, Reich is one of the dangerous ones that we don't know of, but he is how you got here a little bit of politics is involved, and it's the public square. And don't you dare bring Christian viewpoints or ethics into the public square. Leave them outside of the voting box. Right? Well, but you're allowed to bring yours. Yeah. Right? Why can't I bring my viewpoints as well into the public square?
Yeah. Well, because yours are right and yours are wrong.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Which they don't want to talk about is right. There's nothing that's right or wrong anymore.
It's all taste. It's all preference.
Yeah. Except your taste of that there's a right and wrong is wrong. Yeah. Right? That's what's that famous fallacy of there's no such thing as an absolute truth while making an absolute claim.
That is an absolute truth.
That's an absolute truth. Yeah. Right. Good job.
Yeah. 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 Man, so, and even thinking about just the idea of like the politicalization and, I'm looking at like Great Britain and Europe who have, been one of the leaders of especially like trying to transition with kids and puberty blockers. And they're like, if you read the news, I mean, they're basically backtracking and saying like, hey, there was it was on World Podcast. I can't remember the document, but they came out with this huge study and basically, hey, this is not doing what we thought it was. So we're all sort of pulling back. We're shutting down these clinics. Like we're not going to give children puberty blockers anymore. And so we're sort of seeing, hey, here's a place that did a little bit before us. They're already pulling back, but America's like, nope. We are full steam ahead. We're not going to look at like data and science. We are just full steam ahead of what's happening here. Yes. And it's like, man, we're already looking at like, let's have a conversation and let's see, is this actually good? But it seems like in America, we're so on the train of whatever the individual wants, that has to be good. Doesn't matter what reality says, it's the individual is the captain of the ship.
Right. Yeah. It's funny. Sometimes we can out liberal Europe at times where we just have to, there's that pullback of even if like, it's another topic of like abortion, right? And that they've pulled those back a little bit on when you can get those in Europe and, oh, absolutely. We could do it after you have the child for a little bit. You're like, we are so set on the evils against God because we just don't want to repent and turn back, right? Yeah. Of this is building that Tower of Babel, right? Yeah. Of we will show people, we will make a name for ourselves, and it will, and it is crashing down as we even speak a bit as this movement.
Culturally, we can't go to the place of like maybe we were wrong,
right? Yeah, you can't track that back, right? Because you also don't believe in sin. You don't believe that every desire has a good or a right and wrong. It's why would you? We can't. Yeah, it undermines it.
Man. So other thought leaders that you think need to be highlighted as we go through. So obviously we got Nietzsche. Then we have chapter 5. We got the revolt of the masses, just talking about, hey, this idea that like there's a plastic world. Nothing is fixed. I can rearrange even my own body. Yeah. Like, the biology that I was born with doesn't really matter. Even terms like, a biological male. That's a very strange statement. Like, well, what is that? Why do you have to put biological? Like, it's male or female, but we talk in terms that make total sense to us, but wait, why do we say biological male? It's male and female. You don't have to add biological, but we do,
Right.
because what are we talking about? Is this a biological male, or is this a male who is actually a biological woman who is claiming to be? So it's very much a plastic world. We're plastic people. We can rearrange however we want. And just to put a little bit of like, I know we're trying to get like how we got here, but I was a kid in the 80s. And so if I went to my doctor as a 7-year-old and I told him, hey, I feel like I'm a woman trapped in a man's body, I'm assuming that doctor, with a lot of compassion, a lot of love, would have seen there's a problem with this 7-year-old. Mm-hmm. But the problem with the 7-year-old Cory is in his mind, because it's obvious he's a little boy. He's a boy. And so he needs some counseling. He needs some therapy to bring his mind in alignment with who he really is, which is he is a biological male. Now, if Kory.Cunningham went to the right doctor, he's past 7, but let's just say he's 7. Right, yeah. Now it is 2024. If he went to a doctor and said, hey, I feel like I'm a woman trapped in a man's body, then more than likely the first assumption is the problem is the body, not the mind.
Right.
And so we should immediately start puberty blockers. We should start thinking about sex change surgery, like these things, because you obviously are a woman. You're just trapped in the wrong body.
Right.
And it's like both would see, hey, there's an issue here. But in the 80s, it was the clear issue is your mind, because we can objectively look at you and see you are a male. Now it's, hey, it has to be a problem with your body. It has to be a problem with what we see, because the truest thing about you is how you feel.
Right.
And that is a huge cultural shift.
Yes. I think, and that plays into, there's not as many thinkers at that time period of like Reichs in the 30s and the 40s. We have, World War II. In the 50s, we have the greatest generation comes back. The baby boomers are born. What happens, and I think the chapter is aptly named, is it's the masses. All of a sudden, we have people like Hugh Hefner come on the scene. Playboy is established. Technologies come into being. You have the pill, the birth control pill. You have abortion that's legalized, right? A method that's safe. Not saying it's been around for a long time.
And just to go back to the pill for a second, if you're listening, you're like, wait, I've never heard of anybody say something about like the pill was we're not saying the pill is like, necessarily like a morally wrong thing. Like what we're saying is that, and I've heard Dr. Moeller say this a lot. If you don't have the pill, then you can't have sex as pure recreation.
Yes.
So what the pill does is it makes it to where sex can be separated from babies.
Right, yes.
Now it's like, hey, you can have all the sex you want. It can be recreational. There's no tie to kids. There's no worry about kids. So now you have women who are able to step out and say, well, if I take this pill, I can explore because before that, like men could do that.
Men could, yes.
And you could explore all the sexual freedom you want, and there's no consequences, other than like kids that you don't want to raise. But women, on the other hand, it's like there's a real consequence here.
Right.
You're gonna have a baby, and you're gonna raise this baby, and if you're not married, that's gonna be a problem. And where now it's like, hey, there's no side effects in a sense to freedom with sex.
Yeah. So that yes, you're absolutely right. I should clarify of that image of like the Playboy. If you can now have the same sexual, freedoms, minus any, coming of children, right? There's even new treatments of medical devices. If the pill doesn't work, that we have a safer legalized abortion method, or if, let's say, you don't even get pregnant, there's better treatments out there for sexually transmitted diseases. The 1980s with the AIDS crisis also brings the conversation more to the forefront of sex just becomes greater in the culture conversation. Sex sells, marketing. Oh my goodness, of the marketing, 60s and beyond of we think, the traditional, America and this, of that, it happens. It greatly happens to where conversations about that TV, right?
And even I think you think about this problem, like the pill. I know we don't talk about this a lot, but think about the invention of the condom.
Right. Yeah.
So now it's like, okay, what is normally going to happen if you just have a lot of sexual partners, you're going to get like diseases.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting how, if you only have sex with your wife or your husband for all of your life, there's zero sexually transmitted diseases. Like, it is good and pure and great.
Oh,
But
yeah.
if you explore, multiple partners, there is a high risk of getting sexual. So now we have condom you can wear, and now you can enjoy that without the risk of HIV and all these different things. And so kind of both ways, hey, through a technology, you can use something that God designed for marriage and marriage only for however you want to use it.
Right. And so I worked previous for 7 years as the director of the Hope Center, right?
Yeah.
A pregnancy resource center in Mayfield. It was interesting to watch also the understanding of that condoms and different, methods of protection aren't that effective against the transmission of STDs. Even when you look at social, like, TV and different characters that are obviously womanizers. I think of several TV shows that come to mind immediately. No one's ever plagued with, what diseases do they have? They're having a fun life. Why would you ever go against that? Womanizing, fun, and they're with the different, beautiful woman every other day. Do you know probably what that actually looks like for someone? Because we dealt with the reality of that.
Oh, yeah.
And the frustrations of people who thought that lifestyle was attainable, and then they're finding out they have multiple, diseases now.
Yeah,
This was
absolutely.
like, that's part of that protection as well, of why God intended of, hey, there being one man, one woman. There's other people who are not invited into that relationship. It's an exclusive relationship. And that begins to be completely undermined within. I think it's the masses that start to agree with by the time you get to the Defense of Marriage Act. The culture, though, is already still shifting. From the conversations of there's gay TV characters, the conversation of, well, what does that look like for a gay man?
Because I can remember, like, Will and Grace.
Yeah.
Remember how controversial that was?
Yeah.
It was like, hey, you have this character, we all kind of laugh, and it's kind of, we get to know them a little bit through this, and then it's just this slowly, like, and I think one of the things that I've noticed with the sex revolution, the reason there's a Pride Month, that the reason we have these acronyms everywhere is the idea of, like, normalization. We need this to be normalized. We need this to be a natural good. One of the reasons it's targeted to kids is because, well, if kids shouldn't be promoted, then there's somehow it's not as good. So you need kids to be promoted in this because it's a good. And I think the idea of that normalization is what our culture is really after, and that's why it's just going to keep coming into the culture. In every movie, that's why Disney sort of caught behind camera saying, like, hey, what we want in every storyline is more LGBTQ characters, because this is what we want to try to normalize just in culture. And we can think about, like, these thought leaders. You think about technologies, like we've just mentioned, pill, from abortion to all these different things. Rosaria Butterfield wrote an article in World Magazine, and she just gives, like, a few things that kind of happened along the way. And I just want to sort of read a few of these. So 1989, you have Kirk and Matson. They produced basically this handbook, gay etiquette. It was called After the Ball, How American Will Conquer Its Fear and Hatred of Gays in the 90s. And it was this book written, and it became like the handbook of sort of the gay revolution. And it's this idea of, like, hey, let's not talk about gay rights. Let's talk about discrimination. Let's, and it has this playbook. So if you want to read that book, it's a really, like, wow, this actually is kind of what happened. In 93, there was the March on Washington for lesbian, gay, and bi equal rights and liberation. So, this is the 90s. There was sort of that March on Washington. 1996, Bill Clinton signs into law the Defense of Marriage Act, sort of limiting marriage between, hey, this is just husband and wife. And so that was sort of like a backtrack, like a shot across the bow, like, hey, we're slowing this thing down. But then you can see in 2003, the U.S. Supreme Court declares laws against sodomy unconstitutional in Lawrence versus Texas. In 2004, Gavin Newsom, the mayor of San Francisco, directs city council clerks to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples. On May 17th, two Massachusetts women became the first legally married same-sex couple in the United States. So that's, you think about the Defense of Marriage Act. not even 10 years later, you have these things are happening. 2008, California voters approved Proposition H, amending the Constitution to ban same-sex marriage. The ban is overturned by the courts. 2015, you have a 5-4 decision in Obergefell versus Hodge. This is kind of that famous, the U.S. Supreme Court legalizes gay marriage in all 50 states. And so that's almost 10 years ago. Man, this happened. And then in 2020, there was a Supreme Court that added LGBTQ rights to the 1964 Civil Rights Act. So you can kind of see, just even in from the 90s till now, these things that happened that were setbacks and then pushes forward. But now here we are with a lot of activism, a lot of court cases that are just sort of eroding this idea that, hey, marriage is between a man and a woman, and now it's completely, same-sex marriage is legalized, all 50 states. And not only that, but LGBTQ is now a civil rights issue, which now you have Title IX and all those things where it's there's big implications to that of what you can say and what you can't say. And so we can even see the thought leaders, but then also the political system and the cultural technologies and nuances and things that are happening inside the culture that have all led to in 2024, we're in Pride Month and there's a reason we're here. Yep. And here's how we got here.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing that he, and I know he said it's a limited book, right? There's the Strange New World is a shortened copy of the original, which is The Rise and Triumph of the Modern Self, which is the big 400-page. His inclusion maybe in a revised edition of how much also technology plays a part with all this of the rise of phones, right? How much that has truly played a key part just in the revolution itself, which also I find very funny. I was going to ask you this. We've also had a very key, important movement that has come up recently with the hashtag Me Too, right, which started in the late 2010s, of we have sexualized a culture so much, and that there's now people that were shocked when that movement came up of, wait, there's a problem? There's a problem. Yeah. Yes. And it's not just that the Me Too movement found it in spaces where you would think the problem would be. It's in spaces everywhere. Yeah. There's an abuse problem. Yeah. In the left side of the political sphere, in the right side, that people are being mistreated sexually in a sexualized culture, and they're still being very doubted and hard to get their message out because we've so sexualized everything. Yeah. Is that we've looked up and there's people that are shocked now of, wait, there was abuse in Hollywood? Right.
But when you tell a guy do whatever you want, there could be people that get hurt in that.
Right. Yeah. And now that movies have
Dear
to have,
Freud.
Intimacy coordinators because of how awkward those things can be and stuff. And you're like, maybe this movie doesn't need that scene, right? Maybe this movie doesn't need that part showed. You can keep that closed door or whatever. But also, our own denomination, the SBC, was rocked a couple years ago with there's a problem, right? We also have to make sure that we're looking at is the culture doesn't change the church. Yep. And the church has been sexualized, and there's victims, that are saying is hey, if we're going to stand for it, we have to absolutely stand for it and say okay, we're against this model that the culture has, put forward to this. And it's our duty and responsibility. Absolutely. For that. I think I just find it interesting that this movement has also been happening as this continues to radicalize, where it's but people are getting left behind, the proverbial bus as it's running over them. It's yes, it's running over so many people. And the church is the hospital. The church is the place where this needs to go. And where we should be healing and showing the hope. We're not going to fumble it like Pope Francis did earlier of what is our hope, what gives you good. We're not going to quote these thinkers and say the soul is good. No, the soul is wretched and wicked and evil. Right? Yeah. We need redemption. We need Christ. Therefore, our culture doesn't need, sex is a good thing invented by God. Absolutely. So the church is going to find itself in an awkward place now of we don't agree with how we got here. We have to take a stand for that of here's the true hope. Yeah. When that thing does let you down, which it inevitably will do,
Yeah.
is these thinkers have this is I guess maybe how I wanted to come almost like end some of my thoughts is back to the romantic poets for a second.
Okay.
Think how pumped Shelley and Blake would have been with their eroticism of today. This is what we've been hoping for and longing for. You have everything at your fingertips. The romantics, what they desired was eroticism, which has killed romance.
Wow. Yeah.
They, in essence, what they desired was opposite of what they were longing for, of a connection.
That's awesome.
Romance is killed under that.
Yeah.
It's so much more. You've killed. You can't have pleasure without sacrifice. You can't have connection without intimacy.
Yeah.
And through either phones or, hey, this is just the next one. What an app I saw. I have, what at Hope Center, people there's apps where you swipe now to pick people in your area just based on looks of who you might want to meet. Of
great, yeah.
You've deduced someone to 2
How
seconds.
could that go wrong?
How could that possibly go wrong, right? How could that possibly
Yeah.
not leave people broken?
Absolutely.
And why their identity is shattered, why their authenticity is shattered,
Yeah.
and saying, I now need something more and more and
Yeah.
more, and God's the one saying,
I've got it.
I've got
Yeah.
it. I'm enough. You are mine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're leaving a wake of people, of these thinkers who don't think,
Yeah.
And
There's
so
there's a theologian named C.S. Lewis. You should check him out. Try to Google it.
Okay.
But it reminds me of him talking about, especially lust. It's like eating food, and you're basically just eating it, chewing it up, tasting it, and then spitting it out.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's that's what sexual morality. That's what lust is. You're trying to. The problem is, food has taste, but you're supposed to swallow it.
Yes.
It's supposed to be digested, and it's supposed to. So if you only chew food up and spit it out, guess what? You're still starving.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
And it's kind of that cultural, hey, we can have all of the eroticism we want. We can have all of the pleasure we want. But if it's devoid of covenant and true connection, it is not going to fulfill us.
Yeah. It's the magic Turkish delight
Yeah.
that Edmund will keep eating until he dies.
Yeah.
It never satisfies, and so he has to have more and more and more. And it's not a good connection.
Yeah.
It is a poisonous connection that will consume him.
Yeah.
And our culture is allowing and not questioning are you because we have a consumer culture now, are you the consumer or are you being consumed? And the devils that are out there, right, of another C.S. Lewis, a screw tape analogy is they are more than happy for you to constantly be consumed while thinking you're the one in charge.
Yeah.
But you are the one that's in turn being consumed.
Yeah.
And will be spat out eventually because none of this will satisfy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, when you mentioned Me Too, it reminds me, I know Muller's talked about this a whole lot, and actually saw one of our friends on Facebook kind of post it the other day. And but, when you think about the sexual revolution, in a way, it's its own religious system. And, sort of every religious system has to have laws, has to have sacraments, and you think about, okay, what is the laws of the sexual revolution? Especially think about Me Too, it's consent.
Yeah.
Okay, the law that the revolution, what is right and wrong? We don't have any rights and wrong, so the only thing we can come up with is consent. The only right is if you need to say yes to this.
Right.
And you get crazy things that, hey, as long as you're consenting, it's all okay. But if somebody says no, then that's where it's morally wrong. So even the revolution has moral rights and wrongs.
Yes.
It's just has to be built out of consent. And then you think about man, there has to be sacrifices. Think about Judaism. There's actually sacrifices at the temple. Christianity, there's Christ on the cross. So the sexual revolution has its own sacrifice, and man, it's abortion. There's this altar that when the sexual revolution has to have this thing, this abortion has to be a right in the revolution, or it doesn't work, because you don't have a way to give women complete freedom. Because if there is a position where a kid might have to stay and be born, then you don't have the revolution. So it's there's laws, there's sacrifices, there's altars that are built, and you have really consent and abortion are the two things in the sexual revolution that are paramount to keeping it going.
Yeah, absolutely. The abortion movement has persuaded people and tricked people into its anti-gospel message, right? Is the gospel is Christ died for me, right? He has raised me. He died for me, and my life now is for him.
Yeah.
Is the abortion movement is your life for mine.
Yeah.
They will sacrifice the life for their own betterment,
Yeah.
Their own desires and movement. And absolutely, it does. That is why there was such a vicious fight.
Yeah.
As well, involving Roe versus Wade,
Absolutely.
and then turning it back to the states.
Yeah.
And things of the past couple of years, and even Kentucky had a very interesting voting on
absolutely.
that of whether they would keep that protected, and so it's been a big. That's another one.
Yeah, and when the election's coming up, you're going to see that's going to be one of the main talking points. That's going to be one of the main fights, and the reason is because if that's taken away, the revolution, it's really hard for it to keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes back to that. That is what the culture does not want. Children are a nuisance on your desires and feelings in life because they get in the way of things. They get in I had plans today. I could grow up and say, I could wake up and say, I have plans today. I have 3 boys that I'm about to go back home to that have different plans.
Yeah.
And my plans now also.
And you had to get childcare for them to come do
this.
To
talk just for a little bit.
It's like, man.
Yeah, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Right? That they are a blessing. Is it tough? Yeah, absolutely. But it's also the biggest blessing, and that's where that connection comes from. We're the family unit.
Yeah.
That is the beautiful circle that has been invented by God, and it's a good and precious thing. But that doesn't fit well into TV shows, and so what happens is, hey, the womanizer never has problems with like diseases and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, we don't need kids because they don't move the plot forward.
Mm-hmm.
What most shows do, kick that kid out of the plot if there's a kid, because they are not supposed to be part of it, right? We do not want them throwing off the plot of the silliness or the moving forward. We don't know how to deal with them because, well, we've removed them from that conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're probably not watching, I'm thinking like Full House, kids everywhere, mom and dad's watching together.
Right, yeah.
Now it's like, it's pretty much mom and dad watching Netflix and kids watching. And so like kids have only kid shows where mom and dad are gone.
Right.
And mom and dads have mom and dad shows where kids are gone.
Yeah.
And so it's like, we both want the reality of like, hey kids, forget the adults, just be kids. Adults, forget the kids, just be adults.
Right. Do you think
that plays into it?
Do you think that's why some people can't comprehend the enjoyment of many, many people by Bluey? It's such a cultural phenomenon because it's a show that it has an older understanding and style of like, wait, a dad that plays with kids, mom and dad.
Odd.
This is it's like it's actually.
Why does everybody love this?
Yeah, it's on older understandings and themes. Where you're like, oh, look at this group that's having fun together.
Yeah,
doing things together.
Yeah.
It's an older style understanding. So we're like, that's why so many people love it. They just haven't caught to that depth of
absolutely.
Look at the parenthood, look at the unit, look at the understanding and commitment to one another.
And sort of mad that we love it. Why do we love this so much?
Yeah, why do we love it so much? And and why does it also convict?
Yeah.
I talk with parents now. I'm convicted by how awesome it is.
Absolutely.
And my kids also love it. Where to now they want those kind of same games and different stuff. You're like, because it's tying into everybody's deeper longing of parents, a deep connection with their kids and their spouse.
No doubt.
Kids want a deep connection with their parents.
Yeah.
And that's the way God intended it and what we should pursue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that's good. I know we're about an hour and 20 in, so we're going to wrap this thing up. If you've been listening, if you're still with us, thank you.
It was a ramble. Sorry.
Yes, we've got a lot of rambles. I know that today's episode was called Pride Month, how we got here. We are in June, and I promise you, everywhere you're looking, there's something about Pride Month and why you should celebrate it, why you should support it. And so what we wanted to do during this first podcast is just try to show how did we actually get here, where, man, 20 years ago, there wasn't a calendar pop-up that said, hey, today's Pride Month. But today it is. And so how do we get here? How do we understand that? Hopefully you've been intrigued by the book Strange New World by Carl Trueman. I think he's one of just the best thinkers we have today on all of these issues. So I can't recommend that book enough. It's an easy read. Even a guy like me who doesn't know a whole lot about history, man, it's such a fascinating read. Really, he draws the points out really well, chases down how we got here through the thought leaders, through technologies, through cultural change. And it's just a good book to, when you're having a conversation with your friend who might be LGBTQ plus, or your kids or yourself. Oh, this doesn't just happen. Like, the normalization of all these things, there has been a cultural shift away from a biblical worldview into a very secular worldview where you are an expressive individual. And man, the chief end of you is to just explore who you are, tell others who that is, and get them to celebrate you. And that is very different than how the world's always been. So we just want you to know that as a listener, like, the world we're in is different than the world that has always been. And just to know that, just to know your culture, know your climate, because if you don't understand your time, you can't truly live in it and help it. So we just wanted to give you a bearing on how did we get to this place. So what we're going to do in the next episode is that will come out in 2 weeks. We're going to walk through a book written by Kevin DeYoung, and it's called What Does the Bible Say About Homosexuality? And he's going to take us through the 5 or 6 key passages in Scripture that deal with homosexuality and just try to get, what does Scripture actually say? Because, man, we're also in a church movement now where a lot of churches are saying, hey, we've actually misread the Bible. We've misread these passages. What Paul and Leviticus and Sodom and Gomorrah, all these things were actually different than our understanding of LGBTQ plus today. So therefore, there can be sort of this idea of like the gay Christian. And we're going to talk through just, okay, is that true? What does the Scripture actually say? So next week we'll deal with that. What does the Bible actually say about homosexuality and just sort of Pride Month in general? And then we'll deal with a third episode, Lord willing, that will be, what is our response as the church and as individual Christians to our friends, our loved ones, our kids, ourself. You might be listening right now and you are in a gay relationship. You are attracted to the same sex. If this is you, then, man, we have some really good gospel news, because as Jackson spoke earlier, man, Paul writes to a church and say, hey, guess what? As were some of you. Some of you were in homosexual relationships. Some of you were in all of these things, but you found Christ. And Christ has redeemed you. He's washed you. He's cleansed you. He's resurrected you. And so if you have a son or a daughter who is fully in the LGBTQ revolution, if you yourself are, if you know somebody, man, there is hope in the gospel. Guess what? We are all broken. It's not us versus they. It's all of us are in and affected by this sexual revolution that we're living in. And the gospel answers all of us with a better version of sexuality, one that is marked with purity and holiness in the covenant of marriage, where it's supposed to be celebrated. And so we're going to talk more about that in the next few episodes. But we just wanted to give you some bearings, because you're about to go through Pride Month, and it will be full steam ahead. And we just wanted you as a Christian to first of all know, hey, we didn't just arrive here. We actually got here through a lot of things that have happened by thought leaders, technology, and cultural advances. And here we are. So now let's figure out, what do we do and where do we go from here? Any final thoughts from you, Jackson, as we wrap this thing up?
Oh, I just think I'm excited that you're doing this. These 3-part, and I think this is absolutely crucial section, is why we to understand where we're at, so that we can give answers to that, to have a reason for the hope, as Peter says. So yeah. We have that hope, but we need to be able to understand where we got, and it's not just a 9-year, super fast acceleration to this. It's been happening for quite some time.
Yeah. Well, friend, thank you for tuning in. Hopefully you're having a great summer. Hopefully it's going great for you. And number one this summer, hopefully you're still loving your Bible. Just love it, read it, soak in it, meditate on it, pray it, carry it with you on vacation, read it to your kids. Man, because when you love your Bible, you will love God, serve people, and live a life that matters.
The one just different somehow. I used to be. My sinful soul has died to me. The contrast that reigns for eternity.